This online business it's a machine that just like consumes people. I was praying for all these changes and more time and more flexibility and more money.
We get that download, or spirit shows us something, or we have that guidance, but then we ignore it.
We have to shut up for 5 minutes to just allow information to come in. This is what I've been asking to do, and now it's here, and I'm freaking out because it's different. People lead with these sexy numbers in hopes to lure you in, and you know what? It's not sexy behind the scenes.
It's so easy to fool the mind of somebody that is hungry for success.
It's so unethical, and it's so disgusting.
Yeah.
Part of being a healer, you're also kind of inheriting this kind of like trauma. I strive to be as real and authentic because I think there are a lot of phony things out there. And I want to be a safe place for people when they're ready to land.
This is Behind the Boss Lady podcast with your host, Shelby St.clair. I'm taking you behind the scenes of soul-led entrepreneurship as I hold space for paradigm-shifting conversations with awakened boss ladies. You're going to hear from women who share the good, the bad, and the ugly of what their journey to success looked like, leaving you with the advice and inspiration you need so that you never give the fuck up on your dreams. Your soul led you here for a reason. Join me every Wednesday as we dive deep into what it means to be an awakened boss lady in your life and business. Hello, and welcome back to the show. I am so excited for today's episode. We have I call her a dear friend. I have been in her world for years now. She is the very first coach that I purchased a program from when I launched my coaching business back in 2018. And I am still in her world. I call her my spiritual coach, my friend, and she is here today to just pour into us and tell us her story, her journey of entrepreneurship and how she got to where she is today. So Emily, thank you so much for being here. I'm so stinking excited. And I'm just going to let you rock and roll for a minute and just introduce yourself to the audience.
I'm so excited. And 6 years. Oh my gosh. That's an entrepreneurial lifetime. It really is. And that's almost as long as I've been in the online space. So I'll start there. So, hi everyone. I'm Emily. I have been an entrepreneur and energy healer for almost 24 years. 15 of those years, I call myself the broke healer that could. I really struggled a lot to make the money I was desiring, and about 8 years ago, I had my first son, and I was just trading my time for money. And, I had an in-person brick and mortar healing business, and I hit kind of like a rock bottom where I'm like, it's got to get easier. It's got to get better. I want to spend more time with him. And it was really hard. My husband was trying to work his own business, and we were just juggling, and it just never felt good. And I found my way to really praying for help, praying for answers. And in that, I started to find ways that I could start asking my current massage and energy healing clients, like, well, hey, if I was to do something else, because I was thinking about coaching, I was like, hey, if I was to offer something else, I haven't offered before, is there something you would like from me? And I basically started surveying them. I wasn't strategic about it because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was just asking people, like, any guide points, like, is there a path that I could find myself on somewhere? And I started just like, email like 15 of my closest clients who'd been with me for like 10 years almost. And the resounding response was, when I come in for our sessions, I really love that time that we get to talk to each other. You really give me so much clarity and focus. And I'm like, aha. So then I started asking them, well, how do you describe me if you were talking about me to like a friend? And again, this is a great question to ask your customers so that you can really like hone in. I didn't know it at the time. I think I kind of just found my way through the dark. And they started to say, oh, you give me so much clarity. You give me so much more focus. I feel safe and secure and like all these great words. And so I kind of called myself a clarity coach at first. And then I started to show up online and I started to see how I could help people from a distance. I started to take different trainings that I could do. I already knew energy work could work remotely because we would do like in my training sessions, all the advanced sessions, you're staying on the opposite side of the room as somebody. So it doesn't matter if there's a wall or a country in between you. It is what it is. It still works. And so I already knew I could do that. And it kind of gave me permission to start seeing clients online virtually on Zoom. And I was like, oh, well, this is great. And half of those practice sessions, it was when I was training for reading the Akashic records and the practitioner training, you could do them all for free if you wanted, but she did recommend you do some for a fee. And that was the first time I started to charge for distance healing work. And some of my in-person clients started to opt in for some of those, or we did some of that work in person as well. And it started to evolve where I was like, oh, well, I don't have to trade my time for money as much as I used to in the way that I was doing it. And like, if I can do this for one person online, I wonder if I could do it for more than one person online. And my inner guidance kind of gave me the big nudge. And I was like, okay, so you're going to announce this on Facebook Live. And by the way, I had like 20 people who followed me. It's not like I had an audience. That, you're going to announce it tonight at 7 o'clock that you're going to do a live class called How to, like, Intro to Meditation for Entrepreneurs. Because I found that I had this little niche kind of developing. And I was scared shitless. And I was like, okay, I will do this. And I literally went outside to catch my breath because I was like freaking out. And I'm like, I'm going to do this. And I go walk in the backyard with my dog. I have this beautiful backyard with acreage and trees and animals back there. We have chickens and ducks and yeah, and we have goats now too. We didn't have goats then though. So I was just walking back and I'm freaking out. And then I let my brain kind of just do its thing. And I convinced myself to just delete all the posts that I just made and act like it never happened. So I'm on my way back into my house, like, oh, it's fine. I'll just delete it. I don't have to do any of this. I can stop freaking out now. And when I went back to my house on the banister, walking back in my back deck was a little ladybug. And my friend Melissa passed away when I was 19. She was in a car accident. It was fatal. And whenever she visits me, she always shows up as a ladybug. And I mean, you probably feel the chills. Like every
Yep,
time
I just felt
yeah,
them all over my body.
I saw you go like that. I go, you felt it. I know you did. So I was like, "Ugh." And at that moment, I was like, I have to do this. I have to do this. I can't back away. This is what I've been called to do. This is what I've been asking to do. And now it's here and I'm freaking out because it's different. And so just seeing the ladybug, it was all I needed to just keep staying the course. I did my first Facebook Live announcing this brand new training that I'm going to be doing with one person on the live with me. It was my friend Cassie. And I was like talking as if I'm talking to 200 people. It felt like that anyways. And I said, I have 10 spots. It's this program. We're going to start these days. There's the information. I intuitively downloaded the whole program, the whole curriculum, and I was like, I know what I'm going to teach. I just don't have anybody to teach it to. And I made it my mission to fill the 10 spots. My friend Cassie ended up being one of the people who bought. It was so cool. People who I didn't know. And I had this event at my house called Yoga Mimosa Brunch, where I invited people to see the backyard farm. And a couple people who were at that event happened to be on my email list. And one of them was a personal trainer, and one was her client, and both of them joined. It was like this strange cross contamination, right? Like they came for the farm, they stayed for the coaching and the healing. And so like people were coming out of the woodwork in the weirdest places. And I was like, holy crap, I'm doing this group program. Okay. And that was the very beginning of Mastery and Ascension. That's literally how Mastery and Ascension began. And since that point in, I want to say 2017, um, there have been hundreds of people who have joined the membership. And it's crazy to think that that little idea that like 10 people in this little program that freaked me out would end up to be like a multiple six-figure revenue stream for me.
Mm.
And if I knew that then I probably would never have done it. I was like, I would probably have especially freaked out. And I think that's kind of the magic of, how spirit works through us when we start to listen. And it's really been my job since that point back when my son was just a little baby of like starting to really tune into where I'm being guided, where I'm being pulled, and allowing my intuition to make my decisions for me instead of letting my limitations and my ego to sabotage everything that I've wanted, really.
Yeah.
And kind of like the way I looked at it was very left brain and very logical. Like, okay, Emily, so how's it going for you? Like, how you doing? And it sucked. Like things were not working out for me. And so it was like, well, it can't get worse than this. So like, what do you have to lose? Why not just listen to that inner guidance and, start doing things you've never done before? How about if all the things that you do are all different than what you've been doing, are all new? And that kind of gave me permission to be like changing my path a little bit because and we've all probably heard that like saying what got you here won't get you there.
Mm.
And that was definitely true. Is like all the decisions that I had made up until that point were kind of leading me to the same place. If I was going to start branching off and doing these different things, a new group program. Okay, never done that before. Virtual healing, never did that before. And even in that 6-week program that I created, I was doing it on my phone, Facebook Live, vertically, the wrong way, and in my room, in my brick and mortar. So there's a group of people in my office while I'm on a Facebook Live on my phone. I'd never done that before. That like you can go into the archives and
Wow.
go look this stuff
I
up.
see
Like
it.
you'll be like, "Oh my God, Emily, that was bad." But it wasn't bad. It was actually great. And
Yeah.
it was so great that I never went back to re-record it because it's like a time capsule. Like that's who I was back then. I looked different. I sounded different. I was totally insecure and I could totally replace it. But I mean, at this point, I've done hundreds of recorded meditations. And it's like, I don't need to go back into the time capsule. Like it's precious. It's just leave it. But that is a habit of mine. I do go back and I tinker with things that I think are good, but I want to make them excellent. I just did that with this brand new mindset training, abundance mindset training. It used to be called one thing, and now it's something, it's evolved and it's a different name, like
Yeah.
entirely. So, that was a long introduction to me and
No,
where
I
I'm at.
love it. Because as you were saying everything, a couple questions were just like looming in
Yeah.
my brain. And one is kind of a step forward, and then we'll kind of divert back. But the first thing when you said the ladybug, right? And
Hmm.
that being like you knowing that that is her showing up, and that's kind of just that in that moment, that confirmation that you needed. I think that that's something that so many of us receive,
Hmm.
right? We get that download, or spirit shows us something, or we have that guidance, but then we ignore it. How did you get to the place where you began honoring it rather than brushing it off?
I think it's like I said, I realized that if I wanted all these things to change in my life, I was praying for all these changes and more time and more flexibility and more money. Um, I needed to make a massive change. And that
Mm.
massive change was start listening to your inner guidance, um, and stop listening to what you've been doing. Stop doing the things that you've been doing. Just change. Um, and I think for a lot of people, that's like a pretty extreme leap to be like, oh, just start listening to the voices in your head, Emily. And it was. But I can tell you that I've never heard somebody say, you know what? I listened to my intuition. I totally regret it. Never
Mm-hmm.
once have I heard that. And I teach intuition to thousands of people all the time. Never once was somebody like, you know what? I got that intuitive hit. Damn, I'm sorry I did that. Nobody
So
said,
true.
nobody ever. That is why. You know what? And this is the problem is that we've been programmed to believe that our intuition is not trustworthy. We've been
Yeah.
programmed to believe that we don't have intuition. Do you know how many people come to me to learn how to use
Mhm.
their intuition and they don't think they were born with it? I was like, listen, I used to take classes to open my intuition. I would pay psychics good money to tell me about my future. Listen, I didn't think I was born with it either. But what I've discovered is that actually even science has proven that we all have a feeling when you walk into a room. It's scientifically proven that within 3 seconds you can pick up on the energy in the space.
Mhm.
If that's possible, then that means that we can pick up on more than just ourselves. And if that's possible, then maybe we're all really connected somehow.
Mhm.
So it goes really much deeper. But the thing is, I learned that intuition is a muscle. And the more you use it, the more you trust it, the more you just take the advice and you just listen to the thing, the better off you are and the more those messages you'll get. And my guides speak in metaphors. And so they gave me this metaphor once that was like, you ever have a friend who's in like a really shitty relationship and they're just complaining about their partner and you just keep giving them advice like, what did you try this? Have you tried that? And then at a certain point, they just keep complaining, but the same things over and over again. And you know what we all do? We stop we stop listening or we leave.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's exactly how our guides are. They're like, "Hey, I have great advice for you." And you're like, la 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 la, la not listening. And then you're like, oh, I wish that this would change. And like, really? Because I told you not to do that. And if you just listen to me, but you didn't, right? Your guides are always there no matter what. It's not like, oh, well, some people have spirit guides and angels and other
Mhm.
people don't. We all do. We all have intuition. It's just a matter of stopping and listening, right? So prayer is asking, meditation is listening. And so we have to shut up for 5 minutes to just allow information to come in. So
Yeah.
I've actually been having some fun with making reels recently of just like a 1 minute meditation that people can listen to breathe and to listen to their body because our left brain is the analytical brain that's kind of always going all the time on the to-do list. Things are thinking about and changing. Our right brain is intuition, but it's also in charge of our body. So it's interesting if we can slow down enough and come back into our body, how much insight's coming in. And so
Yeah.
a lot of times when I'm leading a workshop, I might ask people about a certain emotion, like about, let's say, money blocks. Okay, when it comes to money blocks, when you start thinking about like not good enough, scarcity, easy come, easy go, money doesn't grow on trees, and oh, our family is never meant for much. When we start thinking these things, where do you feel that in your body? So I bring people back into their body, and everybody knows where they feel it. Even
Yep.
just saying this now, someone's going, I felt it in my chest. Somebody said I
Yep.
felt it in my heart. Somebody said I felt it in my stomach. There's something coming up for everybody
Mhm.
just because you bring your awareness to it. So imagine a world where you could live every day in your body and listening to your own guidance that's coming from the best place possible. Like
Yeah.
that. And I think like it's not easy because we've been trained to not listen to it, but it's easy because it's free. It's inside of your head. And if you listen to it, good things happen. The
Yeah.
end.
Yeah.
Like I'm like Pavlov's dog. Like you ring the bell, I'm gonna go for a treat. I'm gonna start salivating. So any little intuitive hit, I'm like, here we go. What's that about?
Okay, I'll listen. What do we do
It
next?
hasn't led
Yeah.
me wrong. So, and that's really what I also teach people is how to hone the skill of intuition, but also how to specifically use their intuition to grow their business. And that's what I've really cultivated in the last 8 years since I've been practicing so much.
Yeah. It was really interesting when I had stumbled upon you because I was in the midst of my healing from getting divorced and entering into a new relationship. And I was tapping into spirituality and my intuition and
Mhm.
understanding that I had that guide because it had been blocked off my whole life because I grew up being told that like that's not real, right? Like,
Mhm.
no, you just this is the way that it is, and you have to listen to this, and you just go to school and you follow all the rules and you get a job that you hate and you
Mhm.
wait until you retire and then you don't get to enjoy your life because you still don't
Mhm.
have enough money.
Yeah.
And so when I stumbled upon your work, it was like a light bulb. So I was like, oh my gosh, there is a bigger way, right? There's something more out there. It also all resides within us. And we
Mm.
just have to understand how to connect to that and understand that and trust that. And so I got really deeply connected to my own intuition and I started letting it lead. And then once Ernie passed away, I kind of shut everything off.
Mm.
But I shut it off because I was afraid of connecting to him because I was
Mm.
angry. Because I was so angry that he left me and there was so much bitterness and resentment.
Mm.
Like, how dare you pass away? And now I have to figure out how to continue building my business and raise a child on my own, like all these things, right? And so I shut that off. And when I finally realized that I was shutting that part off and how much of a disservice it was for me because nothing was working. Literally, it felt like everything crashed and burned. And I was
Mm.
back at starting ground of like having to build the blocks again and figure out how to like crank the wheel and make it work. And I'm like, no, like this isn't me, right? I don't hustle. I'm not in
Mm.
that place of
Mm.
having to feel like I'm burning things at both ends. Like I get
Mm.
to build this business and do things in a way that feels good, all from that place of just trusting and leading from that.
Mm.
And so it truly is so much power in that. And we all just need to understand and recognize that we have the power and we have the knowledge in every single thing that we want. We can source and we
Totally.
can know how to do it. And it's so much, then it's also so much easier when you have people in your corner like you are who are teaching you how to fully trust it and
Mm.
hone in on that. And so, as you're teaching all this now and you had your brick and mortar and then you stepped into the online space, what was it that first led you even into the energy and the healing work to begin with?
Uh, well, from the beginning, so I in my kindergarten journal, I wrote I want to be a doctor so I can help people.
Oh,
I've known my whole life that I want to help people. And when I was in high school, I knew I wanted to start a business and I knew it was a healing business. I knew I was going to become a massage therapist. And I knew in high school at my 5-year reunion, I'd be laughing at all the people who just graduated college and I had my own business. And I did. I did. I started my first business when I was 22 years old. And I had a clear knowing that I wanted to help people in some way. And I think that's a real something that I look back now because a lot of people are searching for their purpose and to find what path they should be on. For me, I knew I had this calling to help people. I just had no idea how to do that. And, part of being a healer, you're also kind of inheriting this kind of like trauma that has been passed down generationally. And um, as you sort of do deeper healing, sometimes you can find lifetimes where you've been ostracized, outcast, burned at the stake,
mm,
dead, penniless, you know. And so there's these sort of like witch wounds that are deep buried within. And, I didn't realize I had that back at that point. I just was kind of figuring it out. When I was 22, I wrote a business plan to make my first business.
mm,
And I thought at that point that I was behind. And I look back now and I'm like, I was 22 years old. I was 22. What 22-year-old starts their own wellness center? Like, that's amazing. And by the
yeah.
way, I was a full-time college student as well. full time, full load every semester and taking summer classes because I felt behind.
Mm.
And so I went, like, when I graduated when I was 18, I went directly, like, I graduated in June, and by September I was learning hands-on therapy. And it was when I transitioned in from high school into healing school that I was like, oh, okay, like I belong here. I never felt belonging. Also, I have moved a lot of times in my life. So I grew up, I was born in Colorado, but I grew up in California and then moved 3,000 miles across country to Massachusetts, which is where I went to middle school and high school. And so I always kind of felt like an outcast, but then also because I was super weird and I was into like crystals and books on aromatherapy and astrology. And like, I was like really, fringe, I felt like. And so I always had this like weirdness about me, but it was like, now you're all weird. Cool.
Yeah.
Like, belong here. This is great. So like you can kind of see how mastery and ascension is like all of the yumminess that like I never had growing up. It is the place where we can all just belong as we are and share our joys and our sadness, and we can share about crystals and like weird shit that we see, and we can process deep healing, and we can support each other in a really loving way even though we don't know each other necessarily. And some really beautiful friendships and bonds have come out of the community. um but that, I mean, I always knew I wanted to do healing, so it was only that much later, 15 years later, when I was like, oh, I could do this online. So, and
Like this
I
could
was
be a lot
very,
easier.
a lot easier. No, also not,
Yeah.
um, but my point in saying is that I knew I was a healer through and through when at a young age, but I
Mhm.
also was very business savvy at a young age. And while we didn't have social media when I was 22 years old starting, I was scrappy and I would
Mm.
make flyers at my house and cut them and print them and put them on corkboards and windshields and like literally anybody who would take it from me. And so I was always kind of in that mindset, but like my skills that I knew were only getting me so far. And
Mm.
so I did take a couple online business courses, were very helpful in like broadening my horizon, but in that also found limitations because these online business owners were like, here's the path to success and 6 easy steps to 6 figures. And it was, I mean, they knew it was bullshit, and it
Yeah.
was. And they were just bringing people in, and that
Yeah.
was working at the time, and people were like, great, give me your 6 steps. And I was one of those people. So yeah, give it. But I'm the type of person that I'm a voracious learner. And so like I signed up for a course, I'm finishing that course.
Hmm.
They were betting on me not finishing because
Yep.
90, I think it's 96% of online business courses, no, people don't complete them. Only 3%. So I was in the
Hmm.
3% that did. And I started to see, well, I used the strategy exactly as he told me to do it. It is not working. And so as I was making these things happen and I was following these steps, I was like instinctively like, I don't like how that feels. It feels terrible. But I was not listening to that because I was listening to their 6 point strategy
Hmm.
because they were going to give me success. And so I basically was like, oh, 6 point strategy. And I would just, all right, I would rip it up. I was like, that piece I like. This other stuff,
Yeah.
I'm not doing any of that. And
Yeah.
so that's how I sort of like kind of molded what worked for me and made a one size fits me strategy, and
Hmm.
started to also take that into my own business by helping other people recover from feeling traumatized by people telling them that they have the answer and they don't. And
Yes.
then also internalizing and being like, there's something wrong with me now because I bought their course. I didn't do it, but it's not working for me, right? Like people aren't going to admit that. But for the people, for the other 3 people who did do the course like me, they are seeing the same thing, which is I'm not getting the
Hmm.
results that you're promising me. And it's nothing to do with them as a person. It has to do with that was that person's
Mm,
path. That's not necessarily yours. And so
yes.
that's why we have to like, okay, so I have a certification program called the Integrated Energy Alignment Practitioner Training. That is the first and only training with a profit guarantee. I'm literally requiring my students to charge for their sessions. They love it. They also hate it because it's terrifying, but they love it because they're all making money. Like, who doesn't
Mhm.
love that? But part of that is also because you need to find out what works for you. And I teach the energy healing side so they can do what I do, but I also teach the business side. So I'm saying, here's the strategy. Here's the different pieces of it. I want you to look and decide which pieces are going to work for you and which are not. And it might not be for everything, but perhaps these are things that get you started and you intuitively get led to finding some other place. So I
Yeah.
like to give people permission to find flexibility in whatever strategies that they're using. Um, but I also had a really interesting realization a few weeks ago, which I think it's kind of interesting, which is, you know, we've been sort of as an online business, we have been sort of given this information like, here's my 6-step strategy, it's going to work. And thanks to COVID, everybody went online and started
Mm.
buying everything and then also was like, wait a minute, this is a bunch of bullshit and started to get savvy, which is great for consumers, but not great for business owners because now everything that used to work doesn't and
Yeah,
people
everything is changing.
everything has changed.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we have to adapt to the times
Mhm.
or get out. And what people are doing is not that they're not buying, it's but they're more cautious. And what I've discovered is that we need to help people to feel safe and to feel secure.
Yeah.
And my kid's coming up the stairs, but he's gone again. There are plenty, I hear multiple voices of adults. They're all together.
They
There,
need you.
there's a parade happening right now. It's
Yeah.
coming to
The
you.
marching band is on its way.
Podcast near you. So, so what we've seen is this shift in tides where people are saying it's,
Mhm.
oh, it's like bro marketing, it's gross, it's toxic. And I personally subscribe to that. I was in a mastermind and the person leading it was like full on saying they would buy subscribers, like followers, they'd buy
Mhm.
followers. They showed us how they bought it with what platforms to buy them from. And they also showed us how they recorded hypnosis scripts for their video series. They were literally showing us how to hypnotize people into buying from you.
Oh, wow.
And I'm looking around the room like, does anybody else see a problem with this?
Yeah.
It's so unethical. It's so
So unethical.
disgusting.
Yeah.
And I mean, there was a lot of unethical things happening in there, but also people lead with these sexy numbers in hopes
Mhm.
to lure you in. And you know what? It's not sexy behind the scenes because I've seen a
Yeah.
lot of these. It ain't sexy. And so there's this sort of interesting thing that happened a couple weeks ago where I was like, this online business it's a machine that just like consumes people.
Mhm.
And I think my job, similar to like how it helped you to kind of wake up to your own gifts, we need to wake people up to their own human, authentic knowing and being present. And I
Yeah.
feel like online business, it's trying to, yes, of course, like I just said, I was able to switch from helping one person in person to helping thousands of people on the internet, which is great. It gives me access. And I love that. However, it also does separate us in a lot of ways. And so what I've been really called to is seeing how we can be human. How can we bring back the humanity and how can we, learn about this machine but not be consumed by it? And so I think that's part of it is like how can we navigate to become successful without being sleazy and being gross and unethical. And I
Yeah.
think that that's where this shift is happening, is
Mhm.
that people are becoming more savvy and they're like, that's really disgusting. It
Yeah.
doesn't resonate. And there's some really big name marketers out there and there's like you can see their ads and you're like, oh, it's like it's so
Yeah.
unrelatable. Don't show me pointing in your fancy house or in your fancy bed with your fancy dog. Like, I don't want to see any of that stuff. Like,
Yeah.
it disgusts me. Don't tell me about making a gazillion dollars. That's so unattainable. That's so unrelatable. I can
Yeah.
barely make this amount. Like there's
Yep.
this huge disconnect, and you can see people who are still fully plugged into that like old school kind of style. And seen also, because I do what I do and I talk about spiritual business and spiritual entrepreneurship so much that I get targeted for these ads for the
Mm-hmm.
new wave.
Yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
pretty terrible. They're like
It is.
they're really trying
I,
so bad.
and that was one big thing that I noticed too along my journey is how easily you can get sucked in and consumed by those flashy things of, oh, $10,000 in 30 days. And this is the best strategy. And this over here. And as I started doing the work and also then supporting other people, it's like there is absolutely no cookie cutter way to do business. There's
Mm-hmm.
no one size fits all. Just like anything out there, there truly isn't any one size fits all unless you're wearing that tiny little stretchy shirt that somehow fit everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But like it's just not possible because we all have such different makeups. We've all
Mm-hmm.
experienced such different things in our lives. And
Mm-hmm.
so we are not the same person who is going to process things the same way. And our energy just isn't going to be exuded in the same way. So people aren't going to feel us in the same
Right.
way. So if you're just copying and pasting and doing something that somebody says was the magic ticket and the key for them, and you're
Yeah.
trying to literally just push that copy and paste button,
Mm.
there's a reason why it doesn't work. And then
Mm-hmm.
you have that trauma that's then instilled
Mm-hmm.
within so many people because it automatically creates that belief within them that they then are not worthy, and being in business for themselves isn't something that they ever should have listened to, and that desire on their heart was wrong, and
Mm.
they were never meant for more. And what does that do? It just spirals into so much, and then there's so much more healing that has to be done.
Mm.
And that's what I totally realized in this business myself and in
Yeah.
this realm of coaching, and how easy it can be to walk that fine line of that flashy, this is the life, you can have it all, to that reality of you can have it all, but you can also do it in a way that feels really good and powerful for yourself. And like
Yeah.
that's the way that I steered because like when we hopped on, right?
Yeah.
I have makeup and my hair done today. Okay, but usually I'm completely like hair in a bun, no makeup. Like my clients see me in my full authentic self.
Yeah.
They see the madhouse that I live in with babies crying and kids
Mm-hmm.
screaming. And like it is what it is, but that's what we want now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because of everything that we experienced with COVID of being shut in, right? That's what woke so many up to the
Mm.
reality of how so many people can just fake this life.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's really easy to go and rent a house and create a bunch of content
Mm-hmm.
and that not actually be your house.
Yeah.
I even saw on Peer Space the other day, you can rent a private jet
Mm-hmm.
that you can walk up the stairs and sit in and take pictures in and act as though you're flying on a private jet somewhere to take content. It's so easy to fool the mind of
Yeah.
somebody that is hungry for success.
Mm.
But how wrong is that?
And but on the flip side of that same coin, and something I learned early on is like literally nobody knows who I am on the internet. They only know what I tell them.
Mhm.
And yes, there are so many people who are phony and it's not their lifestyle. It is a photo shoot. And they're trying to put their best foot forward to look professional, but it's just not who they actually are. But to the other side of that, which is we have this incredible privilege of telling people who we are, and we can write the storyline, which can be very challenging when we're like, well, all of my friends in my local town think I'm just like Emily, this like quiet person who just doesn't do much. I don't know. But I could be Emily, the sexologist on the internet, and like tell people about having orgasms. Like I could be that person. And it's like the craziest thing that you can have these different personalities that come out. And I think I work a lot with people who are not very confident in themselves and their skills as practitioners, but they have this desire to help people. Like they
Mm.
just want to help people. And so that's part of it, is like the confidence comes later. Just get yourself out there, get the practice. Like it's going to be messy and it's going to be okay. Like, I told you I did my first Facebook Live with one person and I started a group program. Do we recording it wrong? Like, I think that's the thing that I embrace, and maybe it's my makeup that I'm okay with imperfection. Um, but I just do it. And I think to a fault too, that's part of my makeup, is like I'm willing to throw myself off of the cliff leaping with faith, where most people would be like, let me know how that goes, Em. When you are, if you get there, I don't think you will, but whatever. Right. So I'm just like, I leap into the unknown. I take
Mm.
challenges. I push myself to these different limits for the sake of serving others. Like that's all I live and breathe, is like, how can I serve at my highest level? How can I be a better version of myself today than I was yesterday? How can I improve myself? And um there's never a lack of growth. I had somebody, I'm in a podcasters group, and he's like, I'm the manager of the group. Why did you join? He's just asking me these like generic questions that I'm totally not following, and I'm going deep really fast. And he's like, why did you join the group? And I was like, well, network and, guest podcasts. And he's like, are you looking to get more business leads? And I said, well, eventually, but the bigger picture is I'm here to be of service. I'm here to provide value. And if I can provide value even just to one person's podcast, I feel like I've really done a great service.
Mm.
And he's like, wow, that's a great mindset. I'm like, okay. But I think I think back to being human is like, I've always been a little bit different than some of my online business peers, because I like that close connection and that contact.
Mm.
That is one of the compliments I get all the time, is wow, you're so authentic. You're just so you. And I love your energy. And I really appreciate that. And, I strive to be as real and authentic, because I think there are a lot of phony things out there that we
Yeah.
can easily subscribe to. And I want to be a safe place for people when they're ready to land and to find themselves.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than when you work with somebody and like you've known me for a really long time, 6 years, we've been in it together. But like nothing worse than when you start to work with somebody and you get into their program or their stuff and you're just like, oh God, I hate them. Or you're
Like,
just
this
like,
is
they are
not what I thought it
terrible.
was.
They're terrible. This is not what I thought it was. That is
Yeah.
not it.
Yeah.
And I think that's unfortunate, but it is. We're just human. And I think it's
Yeah.
um their learning curve. But I've also joined programs where this person promised me something they never delivered. And I asked for it over and over again. I'm like, why? Why would you promise? I read the
Yeah.
fine print and
Yeah.
what am I thinking? Like,
Yes. Go, we could talk about that forever,
ever.
because that is a whole thing. But on the point of like you can see the people that are promoting this lifestyle and it's like, oh, I wish I was there. And you get that comparisonitis. And then you have
Mm,
the people that like you are showing up authentically and you can feel the love and you can feel the genuineness. And it's not that comparison of like, I'll never be there, but it's like, man, I can't wait to be that
mm, mm,
comfortable to
mm,
be able to be
mm,
that.
mm,
I think like there's that differentiating factor of like there's the
mm.
comparison that makes you feel bad, like you can never have it. And then there's that comparison of like, man, I can't wait. I can't
Yeah,
wait to be able to just be my full self and not
totally.
worry and be able to step into that imperfectness, because there is so much tied up with having to feel like you have to show up a certain way or be a certain somebody to be
Mm.
accepted, when there are so many people out there just looking for us to be our genuine, real selves so that they can be like, okay, wow, like my
Totally.
house is that house too.
Totally.
Like I can vibe with this person.
Right. I don't resonate with your bathtub full of dollars. Like there's never a world where I'm like, you know what I want to do? Get into a tub with some dirty ass money. Yeah. Never. You know what also the private jet, like maybe one day I'll take a private jet, but that doesn't get me all excited. All of the designer things, I'm like born without that button where I should care. I'm like, I don't actually care that you spend $9,000 on a purse. I don't care.
Yeah.
Or that
Yeah.
belt or those shoes. I don't care. Good for you. I like it for you. Looks cute. Very sexy. The red bottoms are very attractive. I would never wear those shoes. Like that does not get me excited. Um, Rachel Rogers bought a farm a few years ago and she shared her process of buying the farm and like living on this farm and like figuring out how to be a farmer. And I was like, see that, like, that's more my speed of like somebody who's doing what I'm doing. I have a backyard farm. I want to live off the land. I'm not trying to kill myself working crazy hours. I have a family and like,
Yeah.
I that. And I
Yeah.
think again, it's like that shift of like reality. Like, really, let's just imagine ourselves in the photo shoot of the bathtub full of dollar bills. Like, who in their right mind? Like, I don't know. I have a lot of questions that are going to be left unanswered, but it's like, it's not, I don't see that as something desirable. It's just not for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel it. I totally feel it. Oh my gosh. I feel like I could ask you so many more things and we could just keep on talking
Yeah.
about all the stuff that just really leads to the core value of how important it is and how powerful it is when you just tap into self. And
Hmm.
when you put the blinders on of all the other things that make you feel anything less than, and you just learn to love yourself wholeheartedly and to
Yeah.
go after whatever the fuck you want
Yeah.
because it's so readily available. Like, spread your wings like Emily and just dive and see what happens. Like, you're going to get caught. It's
Hmm.
going to be okay. You're going to land on your feet. It might not be in the exact spot that you were hoping for, but
Oh no,
it's
it's never
close
where you're
by.
aiming.
Yeah, like
It's never
it's
where
gonna be
you're
close by. You're
aiming.
gonna have to jump again.
Yep. You never land where you're aiming, but you do get further than where you started. And that's the point. And
Yeah.
I think that you're right. Like just having faith in yourself. And I will say this, like my husband didn't believe in me when I first started doing this, and not at all. He actually would sabotage me. He'd come into the middle of the room and start talking on the phone while I was leading a meditation. I'm like, you can literally see me, bro.
I
And
remember you talking about that and then the transition of him.
oh yeah. It was
Yeah.
a miracle. A miracle happened in the relationship. He became like my biggest cheerleader. And if ever I get down on myself, he's like, "You got this. It's gonna be great. You're the amazing. Ah, you got." And it's like it's great to have that. But I will say that to the people who are like trying to do it on their own, are like, "I no one cares. No one." Well, find a friend. Get Shelby in your corner. Get a friend, somebody who cares. Because honestly, I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't have friends who were on the same path as me. And it's those friendships that help me to find new resources, to
Mhm.
get back up, to believe in myself, to encourage me. And I'd be like, one person bought my program, like, yeah, one person, right? And
Yeah.
not feel sorry for yourself. And entrepreneurship and spiritual ascension and growth are not separate. They're all one and the same. And, if you're somebody who wants to help people make more money, make a big impact, then you better get ready to do some deep work. I mean, that's what we're up against. And
Yeah.
especially now when it's come time to like put your heart and soul out there, um, you got to be ready. And it's not that you have to have a thick skin. I definitely don't have a thick skin. I'm such a touchy-feely, sensitive person. But there are certain things that you get accustomed to that can almost be like things that you can laugh at. You're like, okay, I'm growing my business and put myself out there. Like, oh, somebody commented on my shirt. Oh, okay. Somebody was like, oh, that's bad advice. Like, oh, maybe for you. Okay. Like there's gonna be critics. Everyone's gonna opinion. The beautiful thing about social media is you can block people. It's
Yeah.
really great.
Delete
And
comments. Totally
yeah,
okay.
delete comments. And like the thing is we sometimes we stop ourselves from taking that first step or that leap because we're afraid of the judgment of others. And
Mm.
the thing is, that people are going to judge you whether you're following your heart's passion or you're doing some mediocre, boring ass job. So
Hmm.
you might as well just go for it and like live your life. It's one of those things I saw. We're gonna wrap this up eventually, Emily. Shut up. Uh, um, I saw this YouTube video this morning. I was doing yoga. I was gonna follow this YouTube video, and I've literally been trained how to teach yoga, and I still watch videos sometimes. And I opened up the video and I was like, oh, cool, gentle yoga. And she's in the woods. And for 1 second, I was like, this girl took her camera and her yoga mat into the woods. And at some point, she had like nobody paying attention. She just was like, I'm going to record some yoga in the woods. And I don't know, maybe someone's going to watch it
Just see what happens.
and just see what happens. But like, isn't that crazy? But we don't think it's crazy when she's got 1.5 million followers, right? We're like,
Yeah.
we see somebody at the beginning of their journey, you're like, what are you doing with your life, girl? Why are you in the woods in the yoga mat and the camera? What is this? Are you gonna be a yoga channel? Right?
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, I am gonna be a yoga channel. Go to hell. And
Yeah.
she keeps going. Like, that's the thing, is like, I admire people just for getting on the field. And I think so many people just sit back in the stands and they point and they criticize people who are just fucking trying. And it's
Yes.
like, you know what? You get on the field. Why don't you suit up? It's nice.
Yeah.
It's
You
but
give it a go.
yeah, you give it a go. It's hard. And so I think
Yeah.
that's partly why we need coaches, we need friends, we need support, because it's messy out there, man. It's a tough road. And for that person and that girl who went from 0 followers on her YouTube channel to 1.5 million,
Hmm.
there was probably a pretty rough patch
Oh
in
yeah.
all that.
Oh yeah. Can you imagine the comments that she probably got
Yeah. Oh
of
yeah.
random people stumbling upon that? And
Oh,
then there was
just
that
this.
whole group of people that are like, oh my God, this is exactly what I need. I've been
Right.
looking for yoga in
Right.
the woods and needing to
Yes.
bring this into my living room. I was
Yes.
talking to a friend of mine the other day, actually. We were out having coffee and this guy comes walking by. And you tell he's like just walking around town and just like recording himself talking and sharing. And I was like, man, I just really love seeing people that are doing that.
Huh?
And she was like, "I'm so scared. I could never do that." I was like, "I know. It still terrifies me to just like whip out my phone anywhere and start talking or like be at a restaurant and like taking pictures and just like, oh my God, this plate looks really pretty. I just want to take a picture of it." It's like I still get like jitters when
Yeah.
it comes to those things, but I love seeing people just fully embrace. Like, I don't know what he was talking about or what he was
Yeah.
creating, but the fact that he had the balls to just
Mm-hmm.
walk down the street when there's
Mm-hmm.
this street packed with restaurants and people just sitting outside, knowing that everybody is watching you record a piece. You pull it down, watch it, record some more. Like you go on with your bad self because you're
Yeah.
going to get somewhere because and you never know what that person's feeling internally. He could have been shitting his pants,
Oh yeah.
but he's still doing it.
Oh yeah.
Like we
God. I
just all
mean,
have to do that.
the amount of times that I've propped up my phone on books and like it's fallen over, I've done like 30 takes of like a 10-second thing I'm trying to say the right way. Oh, if
Yep.
anybody saw that, those would be
Yep.
fun.
But here you are. Here you are, and now you are just continuing to deliver all of this goodness and pour into so many people and just
Yeah.
fill our hearts with wisdom and your guidance and just allowing your spirit team to come channeling through you and serve at your highest power. It is such a beautiful thing to not only get to experience monthly, but to just watch so many women being transformed by the work that you're doing
Thank
on a
you.
daily basis. So just thank you for honoring yourself and being the person you are to just spread your wings and fly and just go for it, no matter how scared you might be or how it might not end up in the way that you planned, because you're leading a pack of brilliant women who are continuing to just transform and change lives. And like that is such a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Thank
So
you.
thank you for that.
That was the best compliment ever, Shelby. Thank
Oh,
you. My
you're
gosh, I
welcome.
received that. And
Please, please do.
it's it's hard to even imagine, but even like all the nice things that you just said how much I've impacted you and how much you see it impacting other people. There's no level of success that is immune from self-doubt.
Hmm.
And I want to just reiterate that because I don't want people to think that you get to a certain level and you're just like magically free from it. And um, you know this about me already, but I've shifted my business model to bring in more ease and more play and more community. And shifting my business model takes a lot of effort and courage as well. Um, and there's been doubt of like, can I still do what I want to do and impact and really, and I really, I mean, it's just the beginning, but it's already working so beautifully. And like, I just want to keep bringing more of that to people. And, I would love to be able to share a hug and a stage and whatever we can together. I love your energy, and some of the like new stuff that we've been putting together, it's like it's still we're figuring it out. But we're trying, and it really meant so much to me and the rest of the team, like the way you showed up for Business Abundance Week and like all the events that we have, your presence is really important and it matters to all of us in the team. Like we know you by name. And it's nice. And I will say if everybody I don't know if everybody's still listening, but if you are still listening, um, if there's one thing I can impart is if you can just focus on helping one person every day, that's the best thing ever. There are so many people suffering right now, and there's never been a time we needed healers more, people to help each other more, whether it's your neighbor, stranger on the internet, just to be kind and to just do what you can to help others. And um, that's how I'll kind of leave this. And I just want to say thank you. If you are still listening, I really appreciate your time and your energy. If it was helpful for you, would you tell Shelby, send her a screenshot, send her a text message, or tag us on Instagram? Because man, I love knowing that something I said really helped somebody. And I always like to say this when I'm a guest, which is if you're a big fan of Shelby and her work, and you've been listening to the podcast, even if you listen to this your first episode, one of the best things that you can give a podcast host as a gift is a review. So I would, as a guest, I would ask you to leave a kind review for Shelby on whatever listening platform you listen to. Tell people how much you love her show, how much you love her energy, her wisdom, because that helps Shelby to help more people.
Thank you. Thank you for your heart. Again, that just goes to show who you are and how you are, and just the incredible, amazing woman that you lead from. So thank you for that. Where can everybody find you, follow you? I know that there's a dollar meditation and another link that we're going to put in the show notes. So
Yeah.
tell all the people where they can find you.
You can find me on my website, emilyarons.com. It's AARONS. As a child, I was the first seat in the first row. It's always alphabetical. I was winning all the time or losing. I don't know. EmilyAarons.com has all of my links on the main homepage. You can get my $1 meditation if you want to try something out. There's also a really cool free training that I just finished, which is called Activate Your Abundance Mindset. And that's at emilyarons.com/mindset. I do have a podcast, although it is going to be on a hiatus for a little while. You're hearing it first. But I do have a really active social media presence on Instagram and on Facebook. So there's a lot more than I have to give. I do also have a paid private podcast for folks who are wanting to really learn more about building a business. Each episode is kind of like a building block, and it's really cool. I love it so much, which is also why I'm doing so much more of it. I'm like, oh, I want to do it every day. So basically, the long story is emilyarons.com to find all the places to connect with me. And if you haven't figured it out by now, I would love for you to DM me and say hello. if you resonate with this energy and my words, I'd love to hear from you too.
Yes, reach out. You are such a gift to all of us. Thank you so much for your time, for your wisdom, for your knowledge, and just for sharing all of you in the way
Thank
that you
you.
have with us today. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Shelby.
You're welcome. We'll talk with you soon. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode on Behind the Boss Lady podcast. Be sure to follow me over on Instagram at the Shelby St.clair and subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Leave a review or share with me what your biggest takeaway was. I can't wait to connect with you more, and I will see you next week.